Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. In today's show, I'm going to share something that completely changed how I understand relationships, and it might shock you too. What if I told you that your conscious mind only processes about 40 bits of information per second, while your subconscious processes 40 million? This revelation explains why you keep falling into the same relationship patterns, even when you're consciously so hard trying to make different choices. Today, we're going to really dive deep into this fascinating science of why willpower alone isn't enough to change your dating life and what actually works instead. Welcome to Intentionally Single, Seeking But Not Settling. I'm Lauren Jean, your host, integrative wellness coach, and hypnotist. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and mind-body strategies to help you live life intentionally single and content while remaining open to possibilities. Unlike typical dating advice, we focus on personal fulfillment to attract genuine love. Join us to transform unconscious patterns and embrace your intentionally single lifestyle. Stop feeling deflated by the dating world and start prioritizing the most important relationship, the one with yourself. Welcome to Intentionally Single, Seeking, Not Settling. I am your host, Lauren Jean. Welcome back. Today, we're going to dive into something that affects every single one of us in dating. You cannot deny it. How our past relationships, experiences create patterns that unconsciously control our present relationships. This happens all of the time. And I want to share something really personal with you. For years, I found myself in a situation that completely opened my eyes to how much my past controlled my present. My boyfriend at the time was telling me straight up that this was a problem, that I was focused on past problems, and I didn't realize how they were infiltrating our relationship at the time. But I didn't see it at all, not one bit. Nope. I just denied it, or I had no idea what he was talking about. I was completely blind to it. I was still stuck in victim mode, but again, I didn't see it. And it wasn't until we were over that I realized something really profound. I wasn't actually reacting to him. I was responding to the ghost of every single relationship from my entire life. My brain had created this protective pattern so subtle that I didn't recognize it as a defense mechanism, which I completely understand now. I just thought I was being myself and that it was okay, but in reality, I was pushing real love away because I wasn't facing the emotional triggers. I was just continuing to push them further and further down the hole. And this realization changed everything about how I understand relationship patterns. And it's what we're going to really be talking about today. Because the truth is, most of us are walking around with unresolved emotional triggers. And that's not even just in relationships, but of course, that's what we talk about here on this show. So remember that you can take whatever you hear and you can apply that to any piece of your life. And these unresolved emotional triggers, we don't even recognize as triggers anymore because they've become so integrated into our personality that we think that we are just who we are, like I said above, or we're what we want. But is it really what we want? All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to share something that completely blew my mind when I learned over 7 years ago. I can't remember how long ago, but it was way over 7 years. It may even be 10 years ago. And that's that your subconscious processes an astounding 40 million bits of information every single second. That's incredible. Like, is there even that much information to process in a single second? Yes, there is. Now let's compare that to your conscious thinking mind, which only can process about 40 bits. Because think if you were trying to process 40 million bits of information every second, your head might just explode. So let's go back to this. Only 40 bits is possible. And this is why that your willpower alone is not enough to change your dating patterns or any pattern at all. You're trying to use 40 bits of processing power from inside your skull to override 40 million. It's like trying to stop a tsunami with an umbrella. It's impossible. This cannot be done. Before we dive into how these patterns show up in your current relationships, I need you to understand how they get formed in the first place. So we're going to go back, we're going to rewind, and we're going to go into these developmental stages when you are just a wee little one. So your brain goes through these distinctive developmental stages that program your relationship blueprint, not just your relationship, but your entire life. So I'm going to talk some basic brainwave science with you. I love brainwaves. I just can't get enough of it. I went on this discovery probably 5-6 years ago where I was really diving into brainwave science and really understanding that and how it works and every single stage. I even got a Muse headband that shows you the brain waves that you're in. And since I got it, it has had an upgrade and I'm really tempted to get it because it shows you which brainwave state you are in as you're meditating. It's really cool. Okay, I went off on a tangent there. Let's get into it. So from birth to age 2, your brain is purely in emotional absorption mode. And this is during the delta stage. This is like when you're asleep. So you're like a tiny emotional sponge soaking up the energy and the experiences around you without any filtering system. This means that you are in a trance state 24/7. I want you to remember that little fact if you are a parent, because this is really important information that you could take into your parenting. So, like I just said, from birth to age 2, you are in almost a sleeping state. So, if you're a parent, you've got a little one who is in a trance state 24/7, soaking up every little bit of information. We think that they are not paying attention, but their subconscious is taking in everything around them. So during this time, this is where your attachment patterns begin to form, even before you have conscious memories. This is why you can't remember anything way back then. So this is where the shit happens around you, and you are a toddler making meaning of everything that's happened, because that's one of the brain's jobs, is to make sense. And this toddler has no idea of the world around them. They are toddler centric, meaning whatever happened is because of the toddler. They're blaming things on themselves. This is where stories start to form. Then comes Theta Stage, age 3 to 6, where things really get interesting. This is the period where your core relationship beliefs get locked in. So, how love was expressed to you or it wasn't in your household, what you learned about trust, safety, worthiness, it all gets coded into your neural pathways during this stage. So, this is the Theta Stage, again, ages 3 to 6. Then we have the Alpha Stage, which is ages 6 to 8, where these early patterns start taking a more solid form. You begin forming your first conscious ideas about relationships, but they're built on top of all that other unconscious programming from the earlier years. And then finally, at age around 7, 8, and beyond, you enter the beta stage. This is your conscious dating mind. So, your conscious thinking mind, think of it as the same thing. This is the part of you that makes lists of what you want in a partner, and it tries to make these rational decisions about relationships. But all of those earlier programs, again, are still running this conscious mind. The programs that are not actually what you want are the programs that run in sync with all of those mind rules that I have shared with you on past episodes. All right, so that's the basic brain wave science. Your brain operates like a refined pattern recognition system, and it's always creating these shortcuts based on your past experiences. And these shortcuts become your default response system, and they affect how you react to any and all situations without you even realizing it. This is where your subconscious patterning comes in, or let's say like body language. Think about someone who's experienced being cheated on. Their brain might create this hyper vigilant pattern of checking phones or questioning late nights. outs. Maybe your partner works late, not because their current partner has given them any reason to doubt, but because their brain is trying to protect them and make sense because from all these other experiences that cause them pain. And this is the mind rule protection. The mind always wants to protect and make sense. So this is where your mind is sort of going like a little crazy, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And even though these patterns feel like protection, they are often creating the exact situations that we are trying to avoid. And when we operate from these unconscious patterns, we're not responding to what's actually happening in the present moment, but we're responding to our past hurts and past pains that may not even be relevant, but they scream in our heads to the point where we might actually act out and damage the relationship we have when nothing is even happening, but your mind is screaming and telling you that something is wrong. Tell me if you can relate to that. I know I've personally had that myself way back when. What's really interesting about our brain's operation is that it is approximately 95% of our decisions happen unconsciously. Your brain is hardwired to repeat familiar patterns, even if they're painful, just simply because they are known. Your brain wants to know what is comfortable and it wants to do that. It wants to do what's easy. And this is why just getting over it or letting go, I say those in quotes, rarely works when it comes to relationship patterns and getting out of them or starting new ones. You need to rewire these unconscious responses actively, like you need to do something, like using a method of therapy or mind body methods that work for you, hint, hint, or work with me in hypnosis or coaching. Just kidding, but seriously. These patterns don't just show up in obvious ways, they are hidden from you. They show up in these seemingly unrelated situations that affect everything from how you communicate to how you interpret your partner's actions, words, facial expressions, or how they move in everyday life. Even something as simple as your partner not responding to a text message quickly enough can trigger this unrealistic cascade of emotional responses that have far more to do with your past than your present and your situation with this partner. So, the first step in shifting from these patterns is developing a practice of carefully watching your emotional responses to triggers to understand why they exist. This is the intense work that I have done back in 2020, watching my emotional responses to triggers so I could understand why they exist. This is a big part of my process when I work with clients in coaching or hypnosis. This part isn't about blaming your past or staying stuck in old stories. It is about understanding your relationship blueprint so you can consciously choose which patterns to keep and which to release. This process requires a great deal of self-compassion, let me tell you. And it took me a while to get through, but this was before I had created my method, so it took me longer. It's now a lot easier, and I have made it easier for the people I work with. I want you to remember, these patterns developed as a way to protect you, and they served a purpose at one time. They always serve a purpose, otherwise they wouldn't exist. And the goal isn't to shame yourself for having them at all, but it's to gently recognize when they're no longer serving your highest good or your current situation. Now, getting away from these old patterns requires more than just awareness. It requires actively creating new neural pathways through consistent, conscious decision. This is where practices like meditation and mindfulness become absolutely crucial. I also include in there self-hypnosis and hypnosis with a practitioner such as myself. These aren't just these trendy wellness practices. They are incredibly powerful tools for rewiring your brain's relationship patterns. And right now, I would like to give you an opportunity to be guided through a brief journey to help you work with an emotional trigger when it appears. This is something that you can come back to if you need to find a quiet space. If you can't do it right now and you're working or you're driving, please don't do it then. Come back and listen to this. But if you do have time right now, take a minute or two and just find a quiet place, or you can just simply close your eyes. I invite you to do that right now. I will give you a moment to settle yourself. All right. Just take a gentle breath in. And as you release that breath, you might notice how your body naturally begins to settle. And each breath that follows, you can allow yourself to become more and more comfortable right now. Knowing that your unconscious mind is always listening, always learning, always protecting you. And as you continue breathing easily and comfortably, you might remember a time when you felt triggered in a relationship. And maybe you notice where that feeling lives in your body, perhaps in your chest, or your stomach, or your throat. And as you notice that sensation, you can begin to understand that this feeling is actually your protector, a part of you that's trying to keep you safe. And now, maybe you can imagine that you could speak directly to this protective part. What would it want you to know? What is it trying to tell you? And as you listen with curiosity and compassion, you might begin to notice that this trigger has roots going back to an earlier time when this protection was exactly what you needed. And now, knowing what you know today, being the person you are now, you can thank this part of yourself for working so hard to protect you. And you might begin to notice that you can update this protection, like updating software on your phone or computer, keeping the wisdom while creating new possibilities for responding. And as you imagine moving forward in your life, you might notice how this trigger can transform from a reactive alarm into a gentle awareness, a reminder to check in with yourself, to make conscious choices, to respond from your present wisdom rather than past programming. And whenever you're ready, knowing you can return to this peaceful state anytime you choose, you can begin to bring your awareness back to the room, back to the present moment, perhaps feeling refreshed, renewed, and carrying this new understanding with you right now. As you begin to come out of this, you can listen to my voice. And when you meditate or practice mindfulness like we just did, you're creating space between your automatic reactions and your conscious choices. This space is where real change happens. These practices help you recognize your survival programming, those unconscious patterns that keep attracting the same type of partner or creating the same relationship dynamics over and over. There are 3 crucial rules that control your love life without your awareness. First, your brain will always seek what's familiar, even if it's painful. Second, your unconscious mind does not distinguish between past and present threats. And third, your emotional responses to relationship situations will vary dramatically based on which developmental stage you were in when you first encountered the similar situation. Professional support can be valuable in this journey, as having an objective perspective can help you identify any patterns you might not be able to see on your own. Sometimes you just need someone else to help you see what's right in front of you. If you are recognizing these patterns in your own life and you want support in rewriting them, I am here to help. Please DM me on Instagram at thegirlwiththevine tattoo, or you can email me at intentionallysinglepodcast@gmail.com, and we can discuss my coaching and hypnosis packages. If this episode resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button. Leave a review and a rating, because your support helps this message reach others who might need this information, people who might be stuck in these same patterns. Next week, we're going to dive into how your emotional unavailability attracts a partner with emotional availability, or something like that. That's my idea. It's really how being emotionally unavailable might be costing you more than just your relationships. And until then, start noticing your automatic responses in dating situations. Are they truly serving you, or are they old patterns that are just trying to keep you safe from past hurts? I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. I'm Lauren Jean, reminding you that your past experiences shaped you, yes, but they don't have to control you. And I just beg you, please keep your heart open to new possibilities, because there's always something brand new right around the corner, as long as you are wide open and taking care of all of the things that need taking care of. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next week.